Celebrate the spooky season with a glow-in-the-dark long box of the damned logo t-shirt. Pre-order through November 4th to make it a permanent store item. Hello and welcome back to Atop the Fourth Wall! Didn't I used to get these videos out on Monday? I've never released videos on Monday. Anyway, we're closing out this year's Hellraiser comics with something a bit different than the other two. Unlike the other two comics I reviewed this year, this one is not an anthology. Yeah, this one's a complete story for 48 pages. Aside from some miniseries Epic did with the franchise, that was actually not a thing they did, so it's kind of a real surprise that this is what they decided to do. Mind you, like last week's summer special, this still has nothing to do with spring, so the title is meaningless. Let's dig into Clive Barker's Hellraiser, Spring Slaughter, and see what its deal is instead.
Whether I'm crazy or not.
Spring is the springiest time for a song. It's a lovely, lovely spring.
Surprisingly, this cover actually works a lot better if it had been used for the summer special. Recall that all of you thought we were in for some kind of Hellraiser swimsuit issue, and instead we got that skin-stretching machine from Star Trek Insurrection. Here, though, check out Hex Vision Lady here with her Lament Configuration-themed thong. Spring is the time to put demon summoning devices on your naughty bits. Also, a bunch of cool-looking monsters, including this thing up front with snake tongues. Tremors 7 is going in a weird direction, guys. It's not a bad cover, but once again, I question its relation to the Spring Slaughter idea. Also, there is no Lament Configuration bikini in this comic, 0 out of 10. The actual title of the story is Raising Hell, which, as we'll see, is a neat little play on words given the homophone with raising. We open in Hell, of course, in the realm of Leviathan, the diamond-shaped god of the Cenobites that spews out black light. Behold the realm of the perpetual rave! It never rests, set to its task, turning like a millstone, wet with blood, greased with fat, crushing flesh, grinding bone and gristle. But enough about Denny's. However, Leviathan's light suddenly dies out. For one excruciating instant, frozen, still and silent, as Leviathan suddenly stops. Suddenly, a Cenobite version of the Energizer Bunny rolls in, shakes its head, and moves on. Leviathan transforms into a Lament configuration, something that had also happened at the end of Hellraiser 2, but I guess doing it this time is really bad for Hell. It also screams in pain as it does so, which is an opening that one of the tormented souls of Leviathan has apparently been waiting for. Oh, and in this little scene of torture, you'll notice two naked ladies up top, probably hanging from hooks or something. Yeah, people were thinking I forgot to censor a bit in the Hellraiser #1 review. No, I didn't miss that. That was a deliberate choice. I figured the shot would be fine as long as we weren't actually seeing what was between her legs. But people are right that I probably should have played it safe and censored that, so I'm doing it here. Anyway, the old man being tortured grabs a nearby Lament configuration and makes a run for it, taking advantage of all the demons of hell being in pain from Leviathan's cry to try to escape. Think, Isidore, think, old man. It's simple, just a toy, a game. Unfortunately, said game turned out to be buggy and full of microtransactions. He manages to solve the puzzle as a cool-looking monster thing approaches, sending out barbed tendrils to recapture him. With the puzzle solved, he suddenly teleports into a room at the Reagan Sanitarium and Psychiatric Asylum. And apparently he showed up at the maternity ward of said asylum because those look like a hell of a lot of friggin' cribs and babies. You know, few people talk about Arkham Asylum's baby division. I mean, it's got to exist. Who else is Bat Baby supposed to fight? And thus we have our first part of Raising Hell, Stolen Time. Strangely, stealing time is only a misdemeanor in most states. The man claims to be Isidore Klowski, which the hospital rejects because that would mean he's 160 years old. The strange appearance in the hospital got some local media attention, which in turn attracted some people to the hospital who want to see him. However, the attending nurse refuses to let this man, Mr. Lee, go to see him. He cannot be released until he has been properly examined, but if it were up to me, anyone who would pull a stunt like he did should be kept here for good. Okay, even if he was somehow just pulling an elaborate prank with how he appeared out of nowhere, covered in blood, how the hell does that justify locking him up in an asylum? Some mental health professional you are, lady. She tells them to leave. Nurse Pratchett, do you like puzzles? No, not in the least. That's too bad. I was going to leave one of those little marble puzzles that had $50 inside of it that you can get if you solve it, but apparently you don't want it. Mr. Lee meets up with two other figures outside of the asylum, a nun and a priest. The three all know who Isidore is and hope that he can help them. The priest even pulls out a gun. A 45 with a silencer. Standard issue with the collar these days? Yeah, ever since the Pope watched Boondock Saints on a whim, things have been weird. None of us is who we once were. Believe it or not, I used to be Wallace Shawn. In the asylum, Isidore is in a padded cell, relaxing. For all of 10 seconds before he notices something outside the door. Some kind of demon that launches a harpoon or something out of the back of its wrist through the window to grab hold of him by the leg. He yells out for help, but no one seems to be coming. If it's trying to pull him, it does a piss-poor job of it. Since he's also in a straitjacket, he can't use his hands, so instead he bites down on his tongue and recalls a mystical sigil, painting that symbol on a wall in his own blood with his tongue. A symbol, a talisman, a temporary reprieve, although the pain and taste on his tongue will not feel temporary. Nurse Pratchett, meanwhile, is preparing to have sex with a guy who works at the asylum, but suddenly feels like she should check on Isidore. What? Christ, Martha, I only got a minute. I should be on duty. Not a good sign if he knew it would only take him a minute. Discovering that the door to Isidore's room has been busted open, Pratchett tells the other guy to call the police. And I just noticed that she apparently never bothered to put all her clothes back on before going out to check. Good job, clearly this place is staffed by professionals. Anyway, before he can do so, our entourage has entered and stops him from calling the cops. They grab Isidore and make their escape, not helped by the fact that the creature that attacked him is still out there and we get a good look at it. Some kind of weird, thin thing that's very bumpy, and I guess that protection sigil encouraged it to go climb a tree. Isidore says that this creature can only take one person back at a time, so one of them is likely going with it. Apparently the asylum is right next to a cemetery, gotta be great for patient morale, and they dash through it as they make their escape. Like ghosts, flashing in and out of sight, they weave between crosses of granite and tablets of marble. Here they all think of death, of dropping to their knees and clawing open their wrists or stuffing a gun barrel into their mouths. Mostly because, despite being 160 years old and 90 pounds soaking wet, Isidore is surprisingly heavy and they're all out of shape. Why hadn't they done it already? Why weren't they buried deep, rotting beneath some carved stone? Then they remembered that all their wills stipulated for them to be cremated and their ashes shot up into space, so that's probably why. One of their number, Mr. McNo-Name, is grabbed by the creature with its harpoon thing and pulled back, begging the others to kill him, but they just keep on running. They flee more quickly now, faces of stone and sorrow masking their relief as the hunter takes hold of the man. They all owed him money. They arrive at a cabin in the woods where we learn some more about Isidore, that in 1870 he was an occultist who wrote a book about the structure and order of hell, even had a cult that was built around the book in the 1960s. The nun mentions that she had found the book and it allowed her to separate what had happened to her in relation to the puzzle box and her faith in God. They want Isidore's help, though the word balloon there makes it look like it's Isidore himself asking for their help. Anyway, he says he can't remember how he solved the lament configuration to escape from hell, but that this is actually his second escape. The first, when he wrote that book, was intentional on Leviathan's part. It knew, you see, that I would write such a book. It wanted exposure. My God, Leviathan is evil! It encourages creative people to work for exposure! For 50 years, I've had to listen to the screams of those I damned. And the worst part is that book was still panned by critics. He wonders if his latest escape is just another attempt by Leviathan for some bigger scheme, but Lee puts that down. They've discovered that all the puzzle boxes and devices are parts of Leviathan and thus are connected to it. That moment when Leviathan reconfigured itself and screamed in pain coincides to when their group destroyed one of the puzzles. My God, child, if it's true, then I owe you more than excuses. Here's a coupon for my next book. We're about a quarter of the way through the comic, and as you may have noticed, it's a bit of a massive exposition dump throughout this whole thing without a lot of characterization, and I think that's a mistake. We're gonna lose Isidore in a minute, and I feel like we should have spent more time with him in the cabin so we could flesh out our principal characters. However, let's continue. The priest, named Garcia, is instructed by Isidore to saw off his leg. He explains that Leviathan's evil is physical, which I suppose is an interesting way of interpreting what the Cenobites do. That physical pleasure and pain are manifestations of Leviathan's power versus some evil energy or negative emotions or bad vibes or whatever. And thus, when Isidore was stabbed by the creature earlier, that evil was spread to his leg. His leg, in particular his bone, is now a part of Leviathan. Using a grinder, they can sharpen one end of it into a stake, a weapon they can use to fight off Leviathan's creatures. Again, it's a ton of exposition where we still don't even know the nun's name. They're found by another of Leviathan's creatures, this one with a lower jaw that's just hanging from its face. Apparently Leviathan's health coverage doesn't include dental. They kill that one with the stake before the one from before arrives. They stab that one in the arm with the stake, and while it's able to break it in half, even a wound to its arm is enough to briefly incapacitate it. They rush through the dark passage through steaming puddles of dissolving flesh that fill the room with the smell of pork and sulfur. Ah, like stepping into a Hardee's. They want to carry Isidore out with them, but he says he needs to be left behind, asking for Garcia's gun. The creature recovers and goes after him, dragging him in closer, but Isidore figures out another way to try to hurt it, putting the gun into his palm and shooting multiple times at it, figuring that the splinters of bone that go along for the ride might injure the creature as well. It does, but it also allows Garcia to return and impale the creature on the splintered bone stake, finally killing it. They want to bring Isidore to a hospital, but he says there's no time, and he needs to be sacrificed to buy them the time they need. I die, Father. Please do as I ask and bury me. Not in earth, in Leviathan. Stick me like a knife in its gut, forever a part of its pain. Well, okay, but that still means we need to haul your body out of here. No, they set the place on fire and make their escape, heading to Toledo, Spain. Our heroes are hunting down an old crone, demanding to know where something is. When she claims she's just an old woman, they shoot her. Raising Hell Part 2. No one ever dies in hell. This woman, however, is very dead. We finally get the name of our nun, Helen, as she searches the body for something but can't find it in her bag. Lee, however, searches her more thoroughly and finds a necklace shaped like Leviathan. With that, the crone springs to life and her body friggin' explodes, changing into the skeletal dragon demon thing from the end of the first movie. The movie never explained what the hell it was, but pretty much every piece of subsequent associated lore with the series indicates that it's some kind of guardian of the box, meant to protect it and help facilitate its passing on to another owner. It tries to get away from the group, but Garcia helps grab hold of its leg and flies up with it, producing an awesome image of him repeatedly shooting the thing right into its rib cage while they're in the air, which is unfortunately ruined a bit by the child drawings of buildings beneath him. Like, did the artist injure their hand doing this gorgeously badass shot of taking down a demon like this and couldn't properly finish those buildings? What the hell? Anyway, the Guardian is reduced to ashes as it crashes back to the ground. Garcia naturally exhausted and injured from doing something so amazing. Although mostly from the whole crashing down into the ground from like 50 feet in the air. We cut to the next morning at a house. There is no hope in hell. There is no love. Only pain. You're not exactly selling me on this resort. Those who manage to escape to find their way out of that empty pit, often discover that the meat hooks, the razors, the darkness of Leviathan's world has destroyed more than just their flesh. Their credit rating was also shredded. Helen is patching up Garcia's injuries, with quite a few stitches as we see in the bottom panel, yeesh, and is curious why none of them ever talk about their lives beforehand. Yeah, if it wasn't obvious by now, all of these three are people who have escaped from Leviathan before, much like Frank in the first movie. Only they're not total assholes like him. It's definitely an interesting concept, and I do wonder how they got out with their flesh intact considering how gooey Frank was. But given the exposition dump in the first part, it's odd that they never explicitly say that's what their deal is. Also, the foreshortening in this shot is kind of weird, as if the artist really wanted to push Helen's ass out at us as she's leaning over. Anyway, Garcia explains his backstory. I killed my first man when I was 14, a general. He came to the town where I lived. He did not leave. Why? He was leading his army against his own people. I had lost 6 brothers to that war. I was full of hate. I had a gun. All in all, second worst spring break I ever had. After eventually winding up in prison, he found the box and used it. When he first escaped from hell, he became a priest because he needed something to believe in, a hope in something better for the afterlife, and life itself, than what he endured at the hands of the Cenobites. Garcia is still pretty traumatized by it and finds comfort in Helen's arms. The narration explains what's up. Their plan is a simple one. Rob 3 casinos in one night. To hunt the Guardians. To steal the puzzles, the keys to hell, and to destroy them. Interestingly, this was also the plot to Boom Studios' Hellraiser comics. Not necessarily destroying Leviathan, but basically cutting off the Cenobites from Earth. Although that involved Kirsty and a group of her own friends instead of just 3 random people. Anyway, the narration continues. Lee destroyed one by accident with a laser. He knows it can be done. Well, now I just want a Hellraiser sequel with someone running around shooting lasers at Cenobites. He works on figuring out this particular puzzle, though if he was able to use a laser once before, why not try that again? Anyway, when he notes that Helen and Garcia are spending more romantic time together, it's subtly implied that he's kinda jealous about it. Not that he wants Helen, just that it means he's not as close to them anymore. We learn Helen's backstory finally, that she fell in love with a new priest at her parish, but he disappeared, leaving only a puzzle. She thought that if she solved it, she could get him back. And obviously that didn't work out. She's the opposite of Garcia. She seems to have lost her faith in God after experiencing hell, not thinking a loving God could send anyone there. Few days later, Lee comes running in with an unconscious woman. He says he doesn't know who she is, but he found something in her pocket. It's a blank piece of paper? I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be. I thought maybe it was just something weird with my scans, which is still possible, since sadly The Spring Slaughter is the only epic Hellraiser comic that I don't own a physical copy of. Maybe it's supposed to be like a lament configuration that's glowing? The comic seems to be implying that this woman, Rachel, has escaped from hell, but I don't know what this is, or how she got clothes. In any case, she recovers, and we learn that they've actually been collecting tons of the puzzles by this point, all locked in a cabinet. Rachel expresses some concern about all of them in one place, but Lee says that after a while of his own torture in hell, he just stopped caring. I just started giggling, laughing, like I was high or something. I called the Cenobite a wimp, told him to take his best shot, and no matter what he did, I just kept saying, yeah, you can't kill me. Hey, my sole purpose might be to torture you for all eternity, but that doesn't mean I don't have feelings. Now I don't even want to flay your skin. Pinhead, I'm taking a personal day. Get Butterball to cover my shift. Rachel and Lee start making out, Lee clearly wanting some companionship after Garcia and Helen hooked up. But, of course, we quickly discover that Rachel is a plant. Lee wakes up in the middle of the night to discover Rachel in the cellar, having, I guess, activated all the puzzle boxes because we got ourselves a crap ton of Cenobites. And it seems I spoke too soon a couple weeks ago, because indeed, we have a cameo from Pinhead in this shot. But don't assume he's sticking around. This is just a quick rest stop for him on his way to see Rhonda Shear.
But I'll see you in hell.
You sweet talker, you.
I wonder what the story is behind this Cenobite with forks for arms. That seems like a movie in itself. Anyway, Garcia and Helen hear Lee's screams and quickly deduce what happened, the two retreating to a nearby abandoned church as the Cenobites pursue. Not wanting to be taken back to hell, they elect to kill themselves with a dagger. Unfortunately, despite both dying from it, they just wake up again right where they died. It's not explained how they failed to die. Maybe their escape from hell means they can't actually die now, but in any case, the Cenobites enter and reclaim them, pulling them away. Rachel wants to be set free, as per the deal she had made, but the agreement was also to deliver Isidore. And while she says that Isidore is dead, the Cenobites are just like, maybe, but the deal was for all 4 of them, so sucks to be you. Man, if you can't even trust demons from hell to honor an agreement, who can you trust? For some reason, Part 2 requires an epilogue. It's already weird enough when single-issue comics have chapters or parts to them like this, but why does it need an epilogue when there's still a whole other part? In any case, in hell, Lee is being tortured by some weird elephant-looking Cenobite. He mocks it as he cuts open his own stomach, revealing that he had swallowed the puzzle necklace. I guess just for this occasion, and he uses it to escape from hell again. We begin part 3 with Lee cutting off his pinky finger without any sign of anesthetic or anything like that, because he's making lots of good decisions today. So, what is he doing? Well, as we established, body parts that have made contact with aspects of Leviathan become corrupted by it, so he's chopping up a finger to use its bone for buckshot. Lee is haunted by how Helen and Garcia are no doubt being tortured in hell, and how it's kind of his fault. As such, he's planning a rescue mission. Each bullet shell is covered with a paste made from ground black knuckle bone. Whether or not the bullets will work in hell is one of the least of his concerns. Seems like it should be a pretty big concern, unless he wants this rescue mission to end 10 seconds into it. Unfortunately, he's been unable to use the necklace puzzle to re-enter hell. In the pit of his stomach, he knows he can never solve it. Only desire can solve the puzzle, not guilt. That's news to Tiffany from Hellbound. Sure, they didn't attack her because she didn't really want them, but she was still able to solve the puzzle. Anyway, he comes up with a plan. That is why he needs Lewis. Dude, I suck at puzzles too. I'm just as likely to pry pieces off of it and reconfigure them like what someone does with a Rubik's Cube than actually solve it. In the water and vomit spiraling down the bowl, he sees a screaming face. As he falls asleep against the cold porcelain, he wonders whose face it was. Oh hey, so that's what happened to Wormface's original face. The Lewis that he refers to is a submissive from a gay S&M club. Lee met Lewis here 2 weeks ago. Dude gets back from hell and first thing he does is go to a sex club? Or has like no time passed at all, and he went to the sex club before going to see Isidore. Lewis's partner slash pimp slash whatever, Victor, is loaning Lewis out to Lee for his purposes. It's kind of a clever plan. He ties Lewis up in bondage gear and hands him the puzzle box, telling him to solve it, restore it to normal, wait an hour, and then solve it again. Lewis, of course, has no idea what the hell this all means, just thinking it to be a kink, although I don't think opening up a portal to hell really falls under safe, sane, and consensual. Since Lewis is filled with desire, he easily solves the puzzle. Lee's plan is underway, killing the Cenobite that the puzzle summoned and having a dog track Helen's scent in hell. Helen, unfortunately, is currently a pile of goo and hair. Still, Lee's not worried. As established in the first 2 movies, sometimes even a single drop of blood is enough to restore someone from hell. Mind you, she's gonna be really back into the nun look again because it'll cover up her, lack of skin, but still. Next up is Garcia, who's missing his head, and his feet have fallen off. Still, again, he's got the remains, so he makes his way back to where he entered hell. Unfortunately, once he returns to the spot, he discovers the Cenobite whom he had killed has not died, and in fact has murdered Lewis. The Cenobite laughs off this whole thing, instructing him to drop the remains of his friends and he's free to go. He knows that now that Lewis has been added to his conscience, he'll try another rescue, and well, he's already proven he can't solve the puzzles on his own, and he'll need someone else, and etc., etc. Unfortunately, this experience has now filled him with despair, and he decides to shoot himself, too overwrought with guilt over everything. And also, unfortunately, the comic decides to show us the blast in mid-action. It's not as tasteless as when Rob Liefeld depicted a suicide in Youngblood number 10, but it's still unnecessarily gory for a dramatic moment. And so our comic ends on a bit of a surprise. Garcia and Helen narrate that they can feel heat and can see light, and a hand bursts out of Lee's stomach. Lee ate them? Dude, why didn't you just bring a bag? I kid, of course. This comic is actually pretty good, but not great. The premise is very intriguing, probably why it was the starting premise for the Boom Studios' Hellraiser comics. People trying to combat the Cenobites and bring an end to Leviathan. The writing is a bit weak in places, though. As I said earlier, a lot of exposition gets dumped in the first part while not giving us anything about the characters themselves aside from Isidore, and even that's just more exposition. Once we get into part 2, we get a lot of character stuff, but it feels like we could have had even more if they had tried for it in the first part. It would have really made us feel more for these people and their eventual tragic fates. Hell, we're not even sure of Lee's full story, just of what happened when he originally escaped Hell. Lee's attempted rescue was pretty enjoyable, but it feels like the artist was phoning it in a bit. Not only the splash page with a ton of text near the end, but Hell seems really sparse and dull when Lee is on his rescue mission. The artwork overall is competent, but I think the Cenobite designs were a bit too cartoony in spots for my taste. But otherwise, this is pretty damn enjoyable. Still have no idea why the hell this is called Spring Slaughter, but at least it's not teasing spring stuff throughout and then not delivering. It's an overall good outing, but it feels like it could have been a lot more than it is. Next time, we celebrate Atop the Fourth Wall's 11th anniversary with more of the Clone Saga.
Right, we may have a solution to all of this reality shifting. Dr. Linsano has whipped up a device that should stabilize everything here.
How does it work?
The device will act as a sort of phone auto-dialer, push everyone into nearby dimensions until we've hit the one that will match the majority of the rest of the universe.
But what if the rest of the universe is wrong?
The reality shifting seems to be mostly a local phenomenon, probably nothing more than a few miles based on the energy readings.
That's good to hear. It's odd, though. I tried to call Channel Awesome for help, but I never got any answer from them. It's weird they wouldn't respond to me, the guy who's been with them for so many years, and will continue to be so for many years to come.
That is a very odd way of phrasing that, but let's do this. Linsano, initiate the device.
Linkara! They've shrunk Comicron 1!
You know, honestly, I really should have seen this coming. Oh, hi, and welcome to Atop Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn! What is line? Man, that was a good movie, A Voice from the Dark.
I'm gonna get me a Lovecraftian horror that's environmentally friendly.
Seriously, how many sound waves do you have?
Less than the amount of Bulbasaurs I have. Oh, hey, there's one.
Linkara, will you marry me? Hi, Linkara.
Oh, hi, Jarrus. You're on my floor. What is happening?
I think there is a temporal vacuum in place.
Vacuum. I think that we should do something about the vacuum and clean.
But that is not the right vacuum to use. It is a power vacuum.
Now I see. Now I see what you mean. Thank you, my good friend.
It has been a pleasure to work with you, good sir.
Hi, doggy.
Hey, do you remember the Warrior reviews? No.
Jairus? Pollo? Harvey? Where is everybody?
I'm the orange.
Yeah.
Ow, dagnabbit.
Wow, that was a good movie, To Boldly Flee.
No, it wasn't.
Pollo, I don't know about you, but it feels like we're getting closer to our own reality.
Well, I think that...
Nobody cares what you think, Astro Megaship!
Pollo, will you marry me?
No.
Linkara? Linkara?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, Pollo, I am 90% certain this is not right.
Now comes your doomsday.
Is that it?
I think so.
I look around me, I don't even know what's real anymore. How can I tell what's reality when it keeps changing so much?
Well, this feels right. Look!
Who the hell are you? Who are you?
You. Many reflections converge upon you.
Well, come on, I'm not that egotistical. What is that?
Stabilizer.
For what?
Forwards, backwards, sideways.
The hell is that supposed to mean?
It is repaired.
Who are you?
Information contaminates experiments.
What experiments?
For possibilities.
What possibilities?
All of them. I leave now.
Hang on, we're not done here!
Yes, we are. This didn't happen.
Hey, Nimue?
Confirmed.
Patch me in at Comicron 1. I want to speak to Dr. Linksano. Yes? Is anything going on right now? I mean, there are literally trillions of things going on right now. You'll have to be a little more specific. Just anything weird or unusual? No? Why? I don't know, just feels like something should be happening. Probably just some more of your Halloween paranoia. You're probably right. You know what? I'm gonna do something about it. I'm gonna go off and enjoy some Halloween. Good for you. I'll continue to monitor things here and let you know if anything happens. Thanks, man. It's good to have a Halloween where nothing at all happened. After like 2-3 months of owning the cats, Starfire has decided she needs to interrupt filming so she can lay on my lap and sleep on script and walk around. It's a beautiful achievement. I'm like 2/3 of the way through filming right now, and this is when she decided to do this. She's purring right now. I don't know if the microphone can pick that up.
Hello my friends, please be sure to like this video, subscribe, hit the bell, and share it with others. And if you get a chance, maybe check out my Patreon.